Hector Mendoza had spent 31 years at that company. 31 years arriving before anyone else. 31 years solving the problems nobody else wanted to touch. 31 years being the first one called when something broke, and the last one mentioned when something went right. And that Wednesday morning, the human resources director looked at him with the comfortable expression of someone about to say something uncomfortable and told him, "Hector, the company has decided to go in a different direction. We need more updated profiles. You have been a valuable employee, but we believe that at this stage of your life, retirement could be an interesting option." Hector looked at her in silence for a moment. "How old are you?" he asked. The director blinked. She had not expected that question. "That is not—" "I am 58, said Hector, "and I am just getting started." He gathered his things, he stood up, and he left without signing the voluntary retirement papers they had prepared for him. 5 years later, that same company sent him a formal proposal to become their primary supplier. The proposal arrived at Hector Mendoza's office, which by then was the largest company in its sector in the entire region. Hector Mendoza arrived at that company at 27 years old with empty hands and a full will. First-generation immigrant. He had crossed the border with his wife Rosa at 23 with $100, no contacts, without the language, with the certainty that hard work had to be worth something somewhere in the world. At that company, during the first years, it was. He started on the production floor. In 3 years, he was shift supervisor. In 8, operations manager. In 15, he had designed the quality control system the company was still using, the one that had reduced production losses by 40%. He never asked for public recognition. He never aggressively negotiated his salary when he should have. He never threatened to leave when other companies called. Because Hector was the kind of man who believed loyalty is repaid with loyalty. His teams followed him because Hector never asked them to do anything he was not willing to do first. If they had to stay until 10 at night, Hector was the first to stay and the last to leave. That builds a kind of loyalty that appears in no organizational chart. But it also does not appear in the new strategies of companies that decide experience is a cost, not an asset. And that is exactly what the new leadership decided when they arrived with their 30-year-old consultants and their spreadsheets. The new CEO was 35 years old and had a vocabulary full of words like optimization, agility, and digital transformation. What he did not have was patience for people who had been at the company longer than he had been in the workforce. In his first weeks, he did something Hector found revealing. He walked through the entire plant without asking anyone anything. He just observed. He just took notes. He only consulted with the people he had brought with him. The knowledge accumulated within those walls, 30 years of knowing exactly why each process worked the way it worked, did not interest him. What interested him was reducing the headcount of employees over 50, who in his analysis represented the highest cost and lowest adaptability segment. Hector read the internal report because someone passed it to him. Not because he was indiscreet, but because he had been at that company for 31 years and people told him things. He read his name on the priority exit list. That evening he came home, had dinner with Rosa, and told her, "I think it is time." Rosa looked at him. "Time for what?" "To do what I always should have done." Hector Mendoza was 58 years old, with 31 years of experience in industrial manufacturing, and a knowledge of the sector that no 30-year-old consultant could buy on a spreadsheet. He also had something else, a mental list of suppliers, clients, and contacts he had built over 3 decades of honest work. People who knew him, people who trusted his word. And he had Rosa, who that night listened to everything, reviewed the numbers Hector had written by hand in a notebook, and said, "We have 20 years of savings. If we do not do this now, Hector, when?" Hector looked at her, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something the years at that company had been quietly extinguishing without him noticing. Excitement. The next day he went to the Human Resources meeting. He listened to the retirement proposal. He asked the question about her age. And he left without signing anything. That afternoon, he registered the name of his company, Mendoza Industrial Solutions. Starting capital, 20 years of savings and 31 years of knowledge that no one had ever paid him enough for. The first year was the hardest, not because Hector did not know what he was doing, but because building something from scratch at 58 requires a different kind of energy than building it at 27. Not harder, different, more conscious, more deliberate. Hector called every contact he had accumulated in 30 years, not to ask for favors, but to offer something concrete, the same level of quality and reliability they had always had, but now directly with him, no middlemen, at a better price. The first contract came from a mid-sized client who had worked with Hector for 12 years at the previous company and did not hesitate for a single day. "With you I will sign," he said. "With the company, I no longer know who I am talking to." That first contract brought cash flow. Cash flow brought more contracts. And the contracts brought something that money cannot buy directly, but that money honestly earned does build: reputation. In 3 years, Mendoza Industrial Solutions had 22 employees, 4 annual contracts with medium and large companies, and an operating margin that Hector, with his experience, knew exactly how to keep healthy. What happened at the company that fired Hector was not a dramatic collapse. It was something slower and more costly: the gradual erosion of everything that had worked. The quality control system Hector had designed was replaced by newer software that nobody knew how to operate correctly. Trusted suppliers were swapped for cheaper options that proved less reliable. Experienced supervisors were replaced by younger profiles who needed a year of learning before becoming productive. In 2 years, the production error rate had increased by 32%. In 3, they had lost 2 major contracts with clients who had been with them for over a decade. The young CEO was replaced by another director, that one by another. The company kept operating, but it was no longer what it had been. And in the 4th year, the new purchasing department began searching for external suppliers for services they could no longer guarantee internally. Someone in that department mentioned a name several people recognized: Mendoza Industrial Solutions. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. Company letterhead, formal service contract proposal, favorable terms, signed by the purchasing director. Hector read it twice. Then he called Rosa. "Do you remember the company that told me I was too old?" "I remember it," said Rosa. They just sent me a proposal to become their primary supplier. There was a silence on the line. What are you going to do? Rosa asked. Hector thought for a moment. I am going to accept, he said, because the business is good, and because I no longer need them to admit the mistake. I just need them to pay well and on time. Rosa laughed. Hector did too. It was the laughter of two people who had bet everything on something difficult with 20 years of savings, and had been right. There comes a moment in many men's lives when the world tells them they are finished, that they have already given what they had to give, that the young ones know more now, that experience no longer counts the way it used to, that it is time to step aside. Hector Mendoza heard that message at 58 years old, and he decided it was a lie. Not with anger, not with the need to prove anything to anyone. He decided it with the calm of someone who knows his own value because he built it with his own hands over 31 years. And that certainty, the one that comes from knowing what you are worth regardless of what others decide, is the only thing that cannot be fired. No director, no restructuring, no spreadsheet. That certainty is yours forever. If this story moved you, share it on WhatsApp right now. Someone needs to hear it today. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe. The next video on screen will surprise you even more.